Kyle from Indiana. Kyle wants to talk about what are our thoughts on the early religions like the Sumerians.
Yeah, hi, Erin, Mike.
Hi.
Great to talk to you guys. I normally see Dan, but hey, Erin, you're doing a great job hosting. What I want to talk about, and so you know, I'm a non-believer. I'm an atheist. I wish theists would call because you guys could tear them up. But we have to wonder where the human species came from. We do have a fused chromosome, and if you want to talk about science. So the question is, how did that happen? It's not been seen outside of humans or mammals. And I know the History Channel, which is ironic, plays a lot about ancient aliens. And they take it back to the Sumerian culture with the planet Nibiru and the Anunnaki. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yes,
slightly. Yeah, I mean, not nearly as much as Erin, probably.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? What are your questions
about
the
somebody knows what I'm.
I roughly know what you're
is,
talking about. It's been a little bit while, so I might, but I think I have a pretty good idea about the Sumerian. Not only just this like the like historical side of it about what this ancient Sumerian culture was, but then also what it's claimed to be on shows like on the History Channel. So what is your question that you have about them? And I'll do my best.
Well, exactly. And I'm probably where you are, Erin, as far as I don't know more than what I've looked at Google. And it's basically to show ancient aliens. But there's a theory that aliens came down here, Lord only knows how long, at least 6,000 years, right? And changed us to make us smarter. Now, I'm not saying I believe this, but if I have to put this theory next to the theory of any god you put out there, I have to wonder, because this is natural. We're talking about natural creatures that evolved on other planets and came here. And if the human species doesn't see some sort of great barrier, what makes us think that we won't eventually, we're talking hundreds, maybe thousands of years from now, reach other planets?
I feel like there's like
and as much as I know that you go ahead. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
That's okay. I feel like you could cover so many different topics just in this one thing. We're talking first about human evolution. We're talking about the great leap, kind of, that some people refer to with like the human intelligence level. We're talking about the cradle of civilization and ancient civilizations before, like in Mesopotamia, before the Akkadians and the Babylonians. We're talking about now, I think you're about to jump to moving forward in intelligence, and maybe something to do with I think that's called the Silurian paradox, about things becoming so advanced, and how do we know? There's a lot of questions that kind of get covered in that whole topic. I will bring you back to I'll let you clarify kind of what is your main kind of thought about it, but I think,
yeah, and I have a question as well about
Cool.
the theory that you think is more plausible.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you're kind of focused on the idea of so in the ancient Sumerian mythology, there was it's kind of similar to the biblical theology, where like these kind of demiurge, or I guess like modern people would call them aliens, would come down, and then that's how we got this like human intelligence level. Is that what you're wondering about?
Yes, and I like, Erin, thank you for saying I'm wondering about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I believe this.
Sure.
I just believe that these things may be more plausible. And from the evidence that we have from those time periods, I mean, we have no evidence from those time periods saying it's not true. All we have is anecdotal.
We do have evidence that there was many different cultures that had lots of different mythological stories, and like I think that one of the downfalls of this theory is that for some reason it started just 6,000 years ago or whatever it was, which is kind of also when our beginnings of our written history, as far as like our first kind of artwork that we have, comes back to it. So one thing that my question would be, why would we think that people before that, just because they aren't leaving like a written history for us, why we think that they weren't anatomically the same as us? Like, is it putting such a thing like up on a pedestal almost, that you're only at this like level of intelligence once you start creating artwork, or when you start creating written words? That's kind of one thought I have about it.
Hey, Erin, I'm with you. But here's where I'm at when I use epistemology and the scientific method. I try and find things that say it's wrong. And there are very few things. I'm not saying that it's right. What I'm saying is there isn't so much out there that says this isn't true.
Okay, so that's where my ears perk up.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this over to Jmike because I think he's got. I think I see where he's doing.
Yeah, that's where. So, because if you talk about epistemology, yeah. So, like, and I don't want to commit you to saying like you said, you've drawn a line in the sand. You know, it's not like you're not dying on a hill or anything. But I want to kind of go through your thought process, because, like, when I talk about epistemology, or when I discuss epistemology, it's talking about what you know, right? Saying that, like, if we go off the idea that hasn't been established, I mean, you might just back yourself into a black swan fallacy, which is not what I think you would want to do, because it could just be the fact that, like, if you're looking for a contradiction in the view, that's one thing. Like, I get that you've established a contradiction, it kind of rules that out, de facto. I get that, and I agree with you. Like, when you say, talking about like terrestrial life, you say that, you kind of make the idea that it doesn't necessarily have an inference rule to God, that it could have an inference rule to something else, which is what you're positing as a more plausible explanation. But my problem is if you're using epistemology, my question is, like, in virtue of what is it more plausible? Because it doesn't seem that it's on any epistemic basis that some other theory isn't also on. It seems to be underdetermined to me.
Okay, maybe epistemology was the wrong term. What I need to say, and I don't know the technical term for it, I guess, is I have found nothing that truly discounts it. I mean, there are possibilities out there, and I don't want to talk probability because probabilities are all about mathematics. I want to talk about nature. The Drake's equation goes out to show that there's a good possibility that there are intelligent civilizations outside our terrestrial planet.
Yeah, the Drake equation, though, is more in the line of conjecture, because it's not like there's no novel prediction that's actually being produced within, like, the idea that we can look at habitable zones and determine, like, if we're conservative about this estimate, that it's an abductive assessment on what's most likely. It's not an inductive assessment of the actual evidence that leads you, right? So there's a difference between abductive and inductive. Like, inductive is going to be like actual evidence, right? Real empirical evidence. Abductive is what typically, like, more theists and people do, is they try to say what best explains the data. But my challenge is that the theory that you're positing doesn't best explain it. And I would even go as far to say it's not even more plausible than another theory, because I don't see like the logical inference rules from, here's this thing we don't know, therefore my explanation here is more plausible, because it seems to just be conjecture, similar to, like, any other thing that we could just postulate as an idea. I'm wondering, like, how we can't go on the basis of we haven't proven it wrong, right? Because, like, if I have a leprechaun in my car, I clearly wouldn't say, well, you haven't shown me it's wrong, right? Like, you have to, right? It would be up to me to prove the burden that rests on my shoulders that there's a leprechaun in my car for some explicit reason, from some inexplicable reason. But the problem is that it doesn't seem like you're wanting to take the burden on that you do have on your shoulders, which is that in virtue of what is this more plausible than some other explanation?
Okay, Mike, you're fair and smart. I agree with everything you said. But here's where I'm at. With like gods, as far as a supernatural being, that isn't possible. There are things that are impossible, but aliens coming to planet Earth and doing some sort of experiments with human beings isn't at the same level of impossibilities as magic.
But why is that an explanation? I mean?
Because
why is that even
I think aliens are part of nature.
Okay, but I'm still curious about what is the question that you're trying to answer here? Because is the question of why are humans like smart, or why because we can look back on different other like in our biology and the evolutionary process, or even anthropologically, we can see how humans have developed. There's no it's kind of almost like you're appealing to some sort of a gap or like a missing link thing, like that there is some area of human development that we don't have the answers for of why and how they developed in that way. So I feel like you're kind of like, what is the question that you're trying to answer? Because I feel like the question is kind of a non sequitur to start off with. Does that make sense?
Maybe so, Erin. Yeah. I'm just trying to call with, okay, we're gonna take it down to brass tacks. Why do people see natural things and believe that there's a supernatural cause for it? I don't think that my thinking, and I call it epistemology, whether you want to, maybe I'm off.
So
but
how are you?
I don't believe that aliens are outside the realm of nature, where God is way outside the nature.
Okay, I'm just really confused now.
Go ahead if you have a thought there.
Well, I'm just curious on how if you're saying it's outside of nature, aliens would be natural. It'd be part of
I was
a
going to say the same
naturalistic
thing.
framework. So I don't know how that follows, but also there's an issue of like what is you're trying to explain, and we haven't even touched on the part that like chromosome. If you go to chromosome 2 or wherever you went, or just what I thought the initial argument or entailment was, which is what explains like this rapid growth in civilization and intelligence and things like that. Well, we have explanations within biology that actually produce novel predictions, but we don't even have an alien as a candidate explanation. So I don't know why we would say an alien explaining the phenomena has a better explanatory scope and is more virtuous than one of biology, when biology actually has the candidate things that it's trying to explain producing novel predictions, whereas the thing you're positing, we can't even like investigate the thing you think explains it. We don't even know if it's actually a thing. Like, I would agree with you. I think aliens exist, but I don't know how we appeal to that without epistemic. If you're saying epistemology, I don't know how we get there without epistemic considerations. What I mean is how we know the thing we're positing to explain it is even a candidate explanation in the first place.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I'm really not standing on a hill here. I'm just
I recognize that.
About that I haven't discounted.
Yeah.
But as far as epistemology, I believe epistemology, and this is my definition, so we're on the same page, Mike, is what I know. All right. And those things that I don't know, I do everything I can to discount. And I have found very little evidence to discount this theory.
Yeah, but epistemology is how you know, not that you know, because
so long ago.
Well, hold on real fast, Kyle, because if you just start with this idea that, if I heard you right, that you're saying epistemology is what I know, that's evading what epistemology is. Epistemology is how you know what you know, right? There's this how part that what justifies, what's justificatory about the knowledge you have, that it is in fact actually knowledge. The problem is that you don't do that by saying, I don't know this thing, or I don't have a reason to not accept it, because then, like, I mean, clearly there are things you don't know about, right? There's things in the world that you have no access to that you don't know, right?
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah, so then
interject a little
if you
bit, and I'm gonna take a little bit.
well, real fast, it's just a yes or no. I'm trying to point just real
Isn't
fast,
that
and I'll
the
pass it on to
scientific
Erin. I just
method,
want to
though?
make a quick point, Kyle. Kyle, I just want to make a real quick point so we can stay on track.
Okay, go ahead.
There are
Sorry, go
presumably
ahead.
things in the world that you do not know, correct?
Oh my God, millions, if not an infinite number of
Sure.
things.
So how could we have an epistemic basis to discount things on the basis of that they haven't been proven? Wouldn't it just be better to say we don't know that they exist, but not to make the extra claim that they don't exist or that they could be impossible, like you stated with God? Doesn't that seem to be kind of backwards?
Sure, but there was evidence, or at least there was anecdotal evidence through scripts and such, to say that these things.
I have anecdotal evidence that they're wrong.
Would immediately say, prove it's not. Do you?
Yeah, I have anecdotal testimony that they were wrong. Now we're both on a par, right? That's the point I'm trying to draw, is that.
Oh, we are. Very good. Thank you.
But what my point is that anecdote won't be here. All right.
I'm just gonna hang on a second, Kyle. I think what Jmike is trying to explain to you, that you're trying to make explanations based on the things that you have good justified reasons to believe in, right? I mean, we can believe that you can hold a position loosely that something is a possibility, like aliens, but giving making that an explanation for something when you don't have something that you can actually verifiably produce evidence for. There's no reason to now write a whole new story about what that explains about something that happened in human nature. And I think the other thing was the idea of the burden of proof of not holding positions when you're waiting for someone to disprove it, because that's no different than a theist saying
exactly.
Well, nobody's showing me that God doesn't exist. That's not how it works. That's not how we talk about things that we know, or how we are to know things. You don't sit around waiting for people to disprove every idea, because there's lots of good ideas out there. I mean, maybe not all good. There's lots of different ideas out there. And what Jmike was saying was that he, based on the evidence that you gave, which was that there is a writing that says that this explanation, this is what happened, that there was these Anunnaki came down and they did this thing. That's your justification for believing in it. And all Mike has to do is say that he has the writing that says the opposite.
I can
so
just say it was revealed
ground
to
that
me.
you're holding, the reason why you're holding the position is seems to be, and you said that you're not holding it very tightly and that you're just curious about this and wanting, but I think understanding what is good reasoning, what is good justification for even believing something in the first place is the best way to move forward.
Yeah, because the theist would be doing the same thing to go, God best explains the phenomena, but we don't have evidence for God. You do the same thing by saying aliens best explain the phenomena. We don't have the evidence for
we can both agree that aliens are probably more probable.
I will agree with the assessment that to me it's more probable to posit something natural than supernatural. But
because you're holding back to something that's slightly more plausible than an omni-god doesn't mean that it's a good explanation for something else. But
exactly. Yeah.
I'll let you come back on just for a second, Kyle, and then we're gonna let you go because we've got more calls on the line here. Did that make sense? Kind of what we were saying?
Yeah, sure, but I think I got dropped. I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I just put you on mute for a second.
All right. Thank you, guys. Awesome conversation. I'd like to call back some other time and maybe talk about other things. Yes, yeah. I am not wired to believe that this is true.
Sure.
But as far as theories on how humans became self-conscious compared to every other animal on the planet, man, I don't have a better explanation. So, not that I believe it, but I can't discount it either. Thank you,
Kyle. I have so much respect for you for being honest. I have a lot of respect for you for saying, look, I don't know, but this is a thing. I think that is, if more people did that, the world would be so much better of a place. Totally. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for calling in, Kyle. I do appreciate the call, and I appreciate your humility and that you're just open to this idea. I think that like we had talked about, just figuring out how do we come to know things and learning about the burden of proof and how to verify whether something's good evidence for something or not and learning when it is a good time to attribute those things to explanations for the rest of the world, or like Mike said, making other predictions for the future. So that was an interesting call. I used to be really interested in the Sumerian stuff, and I got sucked into some of the ideas a little bit for a while. There's some pretty wild like mythologies there about like
what's interesting. Like,
it is super interesting.
Yeah, like there's no harm in being like an atheist and not taking like consideration and things for fun. I mean, I think it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I realized, like, I got also like ideas like the stoned ape theory, realizing like what is the thing that they're trying to explain? Is there actually a gap there? Learning more about human evolution, like how did our brains develop and what part of our brains came at what point in our development, and realizing that the gap that was being filled, which is kind of it seems more like a theistic idea than anything else, to be like, when did we acquire this soul-like thing? When did we acquire this self-consciousness? Like, we've it's pretty, there's a lot of things there. So I don't know. Thanks for calling.
It's like not wanting to commit, but then like kind of going on a lesser claim that's about the same almost,
Yeah, totally. So I do love talking about that stuff. I think it's super fun to think about alternate explanations.
Sure.
But,
yeah.